What's up, everybody? Kyle Tim here once again with the Anime Association. And today we have a great topic, probably a controversial topic: Dragon Ball versus Dragon Ball Z. Which one is better? But before we get into that, I have my co host here with me today and a special guest. So I'll let my co host introduce himself first.
Hey y'all, it's Ginyu Talk here. So yeah, ready to get into this stuff. So yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, and I'm Silva, Silva no Yume on TikTok and Silva Circle on IG. And I'm looking forward to talking with these gents about an iconic series, both of them.
Yes, they are, and a lot of people have nostalgia towards Dragon Ball Z, which is of course the second half of the original Dragon Ball story, and a lot of people haven't seen original Dragon Ball before. But if you have, there's kind of a discussion, debate that usually happens between the two of which one is better. So I want to ask Ginyu what his opinion is on it first.
Um, I mean, they're both great. I think they've given us both great memories growing up, as especially for our childhoods. But I think if I had to really pick a side to lean on, I think I lean more towards Dragon Ball Z. I will say a disclaimer itself. I've only watched OG Dragon Ball 3 times. It is one that I probably need to rewatch again. In but in for this conversation itself, I would still probably lean towards Z anyways because of the stories that that happened after, but also the actual investment that that I ended up placing in the series as those characters grew up and certain things transpired going forward. So I think my level of invest because of that investment, I lean towards Z for me as a better series,
Okay,
as a personal
yeah,
opinion.
I could see where that comes from, especially when you start getting more of the tension, and then later on, about midway through, when everything starts focusing on Gohan, uh, especially being a kid, you kind of self insert yourself. But now that we got Ginyu's perspective on it, I want to know what Silva's perspective of it is.
So I might be the oldest guy in the group right now, and I grew up running home from school to watch Dragon Ball Z. That was the one I watched first. And then I recently rewatched Dragon Ball, and I like fell in love again with the series. And what threw me off is once I got to Dragon Ball Z, it didn't feel the same. It didn't feel how I felt when I watched it in middle school and high school. And even as a reflection of Dragon Ball, even though there is more depth to Z, and that's where you really get the lore, because there's no real lore in Dragon Ball. You don't get the Saiyan lore and all the things that it comes with. Yeah, you talk a little bit about it, but you get the Super Saiyan, you get the development of the characters in Z. You don't get that in Dragon Ball, but I still felt that for me personally, it was a little bit hollow for Z. It was a little bit too much about power scaling. And that's why I lean towards Dragon Ball and the adventures that they had. And that resonated with me a little bit more as I got older. That's my take on the two.
Uh, you know, you caught me off guard with saying that Z felt kind of hollow. Uh,
Well,
cause
and when I say hollow compared to Dragon Ball, because you're right, it does go into family ties and like Gohan and his dad dying, all those different things. But like sometimes I felt like what really attracted me as a child, I guess, was just the power scaling and the strength. And going back, I just didn't enjoy the story of like Goku, Gohan, and all that stuff. Like it just didn't hit me as much as like Goku just going on an adventure as a child, if that makes sense.
nah, it definitely does. I think the one thing that Dragon Ball does better than Z is the adventure and fun aspect of it because once you get to Z, it's constantly tension after tension. My I go back and forth about which one I think is better because sometimes I'll sit there and I'll say OG is better because of the lightheartedness, the gags that are involved in it, and then just like some of the fights and character moments are a little bit better. Like the fights are a little bit more choreographed in Z, and like you were saying, the scaling. But then when we get to Z, we start getting a lot of the things that kind of made my childhood. Like same exact thing. I used to run home after Z, throw my book bag on the. I said after Z, after school, throw my book bag on the ground, get yelled at by my grandma or something, and watch Dragon Ball. Like that's kind of how it went. But also that Cell saga is really what sells Z to me. Like Cell that the Android Cell saga is probably the pinnacle of Dragon Ball writing to me because you bring in that aspects of OG Dragon Ball that we enjoy with some of the gags and some of the more
Like the
slice
tournament
of
and
life
stuff like
moments.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we bring in the power scaling with it as well. And on top of that, Goku versus Cell is my favorite fight in the series.
So I got a question
Yeah.
for both of you guys, and like maybe even Ginyu, since your name's Ginyu, and the Ginyu Force. I just that always resonated with me. What threw me off a lot about Dragon Ball Z is they had that damn power scale thing. I think for like 20 episodes, and then they were like, "Oh, screw it, never mind. We can't look at the power scale." Like, it was just like, why did you even implement that? Like, didn't that throw you guys off, or am I the only one who was just like, "Oh, so we're just dropping reading power scales and like Dragon Ball Z broke power scaling to me in general.
Yeah. Okay. I hear you. I think for me, it wasn't something that I initially always thought about. I think I watched it for what it was, and so the concept of power scaling, you just accepted it and never really because it never really became a factor or a high enough factor for you to distract me at least. But I think what I did want to touch on was what you said initially about the series feeling different. Having watched it now, it does feel a little bit different when you watch it now. But I think for myself, the reason why it feels different when I watch it now is as a child, you could tolerate waiting 20 episodes for a fight to happen. You're powering up for a good 20 episodes, and you're still excited. But I think now at a more adult age, you're not really as invested in waiting 20 episodes for a fight to happen because you're just like you're still powering up for 20 episodes. Yeah, I'm not really enjoying it as much now because like I said, the infatuation that we got as children, you could tolerate 20 episodes of powering up because you never really thought about it. You just accepted the story for what it was. You were excited to see it. At our ages now, you're not really going to invest the time to watch someone 20 episodes powering up because it just doesn't make sense anymore. So I can accept that as an aspect of it, as something that would affect your enjoyment of Z itself. But like overall, I think everything else was all right. It's still great, just barring those many episodes just to get something done.
And
Yeah,
then please
so
understand, I'm saying like a reflection because when I first watched it, I'm with you guys. Like I
Yeah.
was eating it up, but now when you rewatch
Yeah.
it, you're just like, oh my god, bro, can we get to the point? And
The
Tim and I
well,
kind
points.
of
so
Yeah.
touched on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
so so let me address that part of it. If you I Because I'm rewatching with my son right now, but we're watching Kai. We're watching Dragon Ball Kai. And the
Isn't that like the
pacing,
condensed version of it?
it's the more true to source version of it. Like they
Okay,
they got they got new. I think they reanimated some scenes, but it's a whole new voiceover for it, a whole new
okay,
dub to it, and it is way more condensed. So when you have, like, I want to say from the beginning, like you can get to like the middle of the Cell saga by like episode 90. Like there's only 156 episodes in Kai total, so it's more fast paced. So a lot of those
okay.
complaints are kind of taken out because it takes out all filler, it takes out all pacing issues, and it stays more true. Matter of fact, it stays so true to the source that they even changed the it's over 9,000 to the original it's over 8,000. So I I would say this is my first time watching Kai. It's a way better experience watching
Yep.
Kai now. Now, as far as the like reading power levels thing, I think it was something he was uh testing, like something he was just experimenting with to see how he felt about it. Because that's one of the things that we get with weekly series. We see that they're testing stuff as they go along. They don't
That's
have
Mhm.
true.
the ability to really sit back and think about it. But also, there were other series at the time that were doing power levels that, like, I think Yu Yu Hakusho has a point in time where they're reading power levels and stuff. Like, there's a bunch of those series that are doing power levels at the time. uh, so I do think it can be kind of like jarring of like we go from oh you're only a level 300, I'm 1200 to Frieza's over a million, and then all of a sudden it's just we're sensing power levels at that point in time. So I think it was him testing something out and then realizing that he's putting himself into a corner by doing this.
Yep.
Because if you're
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Well, it felt like he kind of painted himself in the corner, like you're saying. And it was a great idea, but then when you're like, well, if I want to have this show go over multiple arcs for hundreds of episodes, like maybe I can't have people scale by like thousands because as you said, Frieza went to a million. Like they saw what's Goku's brother's name? Like Bardock? Not Bardock, Jesus. What's his name?
Raditz.
Raditz.
Raditz. Exactly like Raditz. And you're like, oh, dude, oh, the Ginyu Force, all those guys were strong. And then, like, they're nothing compared to Frieza. And then Frieza's nothing compared to Cell. And, like, I don't know, man. Like, I guess, like, it took away a little bit from the story rewatching. Because initially it was like, I'm game. I'm here for it. Keep getting stronger. More Super. I was looking up Super Saiyan 5 in classroom. Like, like, we were making that stuff up, looking at fan art. Like, the hair gets longer.
Yep.
He gets stronger. Like, but. Now I'm just like, you watch stuff like Full Metal Alchemist. You watch stuff that has like hard rules, hard and fast rules. And that was a thing for me too, is that like right after watching Dragon Ball Z, I started watching those deeper shows like Full Metal and stuff like Hunter x Hunter. And like Hunter x Hunter is not a good example, but Full Metal really is. And it's like shows like Full Metal Alchemist, especially the original, not even Brotherhood. You just go into the original, it's just like that stuff was like hard and heavy. And Dragon Ball does have that. Like, but then people come back from death. Like that's also what threw me off. It's like, oh, you died, but then you can come back. You just need to get the Dragon Balls. Like, so what's finite in that world? Like I like things that like have consequences, and I felt like Dragon Ball
Sure.
Z took a lot of consequences away at times.
uh
Uh,
so I think it's because we're looking at it from a hindsight perspective after 30, 40 years of a series running. Uh, because if you take a look at it from the actual story perspective, death was finite at one point in time. Like Goku was not going to come back after the Cell saga. Notice they couldn't wish him back. He had to get his life from
Yeah,
somebody
that's true.
else, type of thing. So it's looking at it in hindsight and then in the rules of super, right?
What was
It
the reason they couldn't summon him back with the Dragon Balls? Did they do it before? Like, was it like they can't re-wish the same wish? What was it?
yeah, you can only do the same wish once, and I think it's still like that with the Dragon Balls. I couldn't find. I looked it up at one point in time when then they upgraded the Dragon Balls. I looked it up at one point in time, and there I couldn't find no actual in stone answer, but I think it's still only one wish. So like they still can't re-wish somebody back to life with the Dragon Balls. Like Krillin, if Krillin died, he could not come back to life with the Earth Dragon Balls.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But I think we're looking at it in hindsight. Now I can't say uh, just to bring it back to OG Dragon Ball that we had more um the power creep wasn't as much. It was more based on okay, yeah, Goku was extremely strong, but it was more based upon talent.
It
Who's
it
ever
was
more
martial arts,
talented?
Yeah.
bro. It was
Yeah,
straight up
like
Yep.
martial
Skill.
arts.
yeah,
Hmm.
because you had somebody like Tien was stronger than Goku. I don't think there's a question about it. Tien was stronger than Goku, but Goku was that much skilled of a martial artist that he could hang with Tien. So I think when you're getting down to the nitty gritty of it, it's not until the Piccolo saga that we start getting that extreme power creep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of like the forefather of the Dragon Ball formula, per se.
Mhm.
So, but if we're talking like Dragon Ball Z lacks adventure to me. That's the one thing about. That's the only thing I would say I put above a OG Dragon Ball is the lack of adventure
But
in because
Tim,
they. What's up?
yeah, I was gonna say you're traveling from Earth to Namek. That's an adventure in itself,
No,
is
it
it
is.
not?
It is.
But you know what he's saying though. You know, like the it's kind of what drew me to One Piece. And I don't know if you watch One Piece, can you or not, but like the adventure of
Understood.
One Piece is just so fast and like I like because Dragon Ball Z is a little closer to solo leveling, in my opinion, where it's like dope fights, fight. Well, and I'm not. No. Solo leveling lacks story compared to DBZ. I'm not trying DBZ in
Okay.
that way.
Yeah.
Sorry, I more so meant that like DBZ has the Flash, and it's like, yo, what new movies you gonna do? He did Kaioken, and he's gonna mix it with this. You know what I'm saying? It's like, can he go? You know, what is he gonna mix Mystic with Saiyan? You know, like those were the things that you were really thinking about. You weren't thinking about, oh, how's he getting the Namek? Nobody gave a damn about how they got the man. They fell asleep for 6 months and they got the Namek, bro. You know what I'm saying? It was never about the adventure. It was more about the fight and who they're about to go fight. So I
Well,
do
He
so
agree
was
with Tim.
training.
training.
He was
I'm
training
Well,
the
in
so
daily
front of him.
trainer.
like my thing is yeah with like I think the Namek saga was the end of adventure in Dragon Ball, the original
Yeah.
run of Dragon Ball, because after that you get Cell and Boo and it's nothing but tournament fighting power. But as like with as was just said, Dragon Ball Z shines over OG with story. And I know a lot of people sleep on the story of Dragon Ball Z, but in the individual arcs, the story of in Z hits way harder as you get more character development. You start exploring more themes within the characters, and I don't care what nobody says. The Super Saiyan prophecy is the best executed prophecy in anime. I don't care what nobody says. It's the best executed prophecy story, if not in anime, then in battle shonen that we have seen. It's better than
What's the
Naruto.
Super Saiyan prophecy? I might not be
The,
familiar. I don't want to
the
speak on it
Super
if I'm not
Saiyan
educated on it.
prophecy was that there's 1,000 years ago there was the Saiyan that came to the pretty much liberate the Saiyans, and then he would come back to liberate the Saiyans again, but through revenge. And that was the whole thing of Vegeta thinking he was the legendary Super Saiyan because of his bloodline
Got
to
you.
avenge the Saiyans from
From
Frieza,
Frieza.
their
Yeah.
subjugator, right? So
Mm.
when you're going through it, you have this story of it. Not only is Vegeta, it's like natural born talent versus training type of ordeal. I'm missing the actual phrase for it right now, but it and then it's Goku. It's everything Goku has gone through his life to come to this
Right.
point and realizing who he is as a Saiyan. He comes to terms in that time period of him being a Saiyan and wanting to avenge the Saiyans, but then it's the push of his earthling ties
Yeah.
dying that pushes him over the limit, being this pure hearted Saiyan to turning into a character we don't recognize, even if it's for a split second. Like he looks at Gohan and says, "You better listen to me now before I kill you." Like that's not
Yeah.
Goku. Like that's not Goku at that point in time, right? But we don't get that emotional storytelling in OG Dragon Ball because of how lighthearted it is. But once we get to Z, from the Saiyan saga all the way up to the Cell saga, that is probably some of the best writing in anime, and people sleep on it because of the way the anime was handled in the making of it.
Sure.
Well, I do
Okay.
want to say though, I do feel that, yeah, like saying that the Super Saiyan theory, or what was it called? Did you say the Super Saiyan
And prophecy.
Prophecy.
prophecy? I mean, like, to be honest with you, it is a dope story. Like when you spelt it out for me, but like it gives like hella Superman to me. Like goes from another planet to this planet. He had to get shipped off. Now, granted, different. Like Superman wasn't supposed to be like taking over Kryptonite again. What? But like, there's some real stark similarities, and I can guarantee Superman came out way before it. Now, did DBZ do it better? I'll probably agree to that. And you're right. Like his relationship with Gohan before Gohan grows up and everything, I think they get slept on heavily. And I'm a big Trunks fan. That's why I wore my Trunks shirt. So like. I'm all about Trunks. Like Trunks was my favorite character, bar none. All like future Trunks. Like even though he wasn't the strongest, he's my favorite character. My favorite character. Maybe not everybody
So,
else's, but my favorite character.
no, 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 no. I was just saying. I was just gonna say. Oh, welcome to. Oh, I'm gonna have to bring you into therapy. Oh.
You got some trauma
Oh.
in your life you need to unpack,
No.
Silva.
Well,
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, you
my
know I
favorite
do.
character is Gohan. My favorite character is Gohan, and I had to see him go through the whole Great Saiyan Man thing after having seen him defeat Cell. To the point where I'm looking at the TV, thinking, "What the hell's happening here? What's happened to my hero?" Like just basically looking at the TV, seeing my hero die right before my eyes. So that was like, welcome to the club, welcome to the
I
club,
hated
Silver.
Gohan so much, bro. I'll be
But
honest
I
with you. He was always whining and shit. When he grew up, I respected him, but it was like, bro, your father is the fucking goat, and you're over here.
hold on. He was 4 years old, got
I don't
kidnapped
care.
by his uncle, then got kidnapped by an alien, a green alien that killed his dad, that abused him for a year straight. I would be crying
Wait,
too, man.
goes to Namek, has his neck broken by Raccoon.
Yeah,
Like, like I
His
don't blame.
father is the strongest man in the world. I ain't trying to hear that, bro. I ain't trying to hear
nah,
that.
man, nah, nah,
He
nah,
never
nah,
wanted that
nah.
smoke. He never wanted that smoke.
Never. He was
He
not
never.
a
It was.
warrior. Piccolo told us that. What are you doing? He's not like us, Goku. He's not a warrior. Like
You're right. You're right.
he's not. But I want to know what Ginyu thinks about the differences, like Z story, like from what he remembers about OG and then Z. Which one does it like better, or like if you think there's even any type of comparison between the two?
Well, there is, but I think that's what I'm saying. Is that like OG, as you guys are saying, it was more of an adventure. You felt like you were part of the adventure that they were partaking. With Yajirobe, Bulma, Tien, Yamcha, and Ko. You really felt like you were part of that journey. Whereas like with Z, there's a lot of I don't want to lie to anyone and say when I watched Z, I was like, oh my god, this is the greatest story of all time. Holy moly. It was more always about like who are we about to throw the smackdown on? Like who's fighting now? What's happening? What are the stakes? That's why like, we ultimately ran home to watch Z. From you, as soon as you knew school was done and you knew it was coming on, you were running home not to watch the story. You were watching to running to watch a beatdown. There was then the story element really uh shown through, like for me, more in the Cell saga, from when they get to Earth, to they meeting Trunks, to Vegeta crying to be a Super Saiyan, to him fighting Android 19, to to the relationship between between the characters, to even seeing Krillin bloody smash the remote because he knew some good stuff was on the cards, and he was just like, I'm gonna leave here with something, you know, kind of thing, and all of that and all of those emotions, like, like there was the
Damn, they
story
didn't like to
aspect.
hear about Krillin.
No, that, like, I mean, it was Z for me mostly was always for the fights, but the story elements did slowly enter into the series, and it really did become a story. Was it as prominent of a story as it was in Dragon Ball? No. But did it have elements enough for you to say, I can see what they're trying to do when they're not fighting? You're like, yeah. So I was like, there was like story elements to be like, did you really care that there was a story? Maybe, but you were more looking with Z. You were always more looking forward to who's fighting who and when do we get to the point of the throwdown itself. But yeah, so I would say Dragon Ball had better story elements, but obviously, like, Z had those aspects of why I watched Dragon Ball for the throwdowns and all of the stuff that really got me into the series as a child.
Yeah, nah, I agree. I think I think a lot of people sleep on the story of within Z because the story is kind of told throughout the fights, right? Like it's almost like you're watching like a play, like how like everything builds up to the fights. You get the big emotional releases during the fights, you get the payoffs during the fights, and I think that kind of gets lost in translation to a lot of people because you get fed the story throughout the whole thing. Like you get fed like Cell Saga, you get fed uh Gohan and who he really is throughout like the story from when we interact with him. And then like same thing with Vegeta. We get the growth of Vegeta and how like he comes to realization of Trunks being his son, who his son is. Okay, yeah, I'm proud of him for being strong, but he's still disconnected to the point where Cell kills Trunks and he's just like, hold up, you just killed my son. Like what are you doing right now, right? So you get that big thing going on. The one I as the more we talk about it, I am going to have to put Z above OG clearly because of those the storytelling beats. I don't feel like OG actually has a story outside of Goku's adventures. It's all while it is all Goku's character arc and Goku's my favorite character in the story. I do think Z is. I think you can argue that OG has more cohesiveness at certain points, but overall, I do think Z tells the story that it's trying to tell better, at least up to the Boo saga. I'm not a fan of the Boo saga.
I think I can agree with you up until around the Cell Saga. I think that you were right in saying that like through Namek and Cell, like it's a strong story, and then like it, even towards middle of Cell Saga to me, I think the story kind of escapes itself. You know what I'm saying? I do agree that there's more depth. There's no question because you're adding more characters. You're adding a family. You're adding him, with Gohan and learning how to be a father and also the strongest person. Like you're 100% right. Whereas in Goku didn't do that much in Dragon Ball besides just get stronger and go on adventures. And I guess for me, I enjoyed the funniness of Dragon Ball and the fact that it was a little bit more. I don't know, like I guess like you could pick it up and just enjoy it. Whereas like Dragon Ball Z, like if you missed a couple episodes, you might have to go back, even though they were gonna explain like most of everything at the beginning of the episode and the end of the episode. My issue was pacing with Dragon Ball Z. Truly, like Ginyu had said, like to be honest with you, I would never rewatch Dragon Ball Z again, mainly because of pacing. Maybe I'll watch Kai. You know what I'm saying? Now that you explained that it's a lot more condensed, but like having to skip through 5 minutes of the beginning and the end of every episode just so I can get to the point really was frustrating. And like as a kid, like I kind of would be frustrated with those cliffhangers. And I'm like, did I even progress the story today? And like, and I'm talking from a retrospective because when you were kids, you enjoyed it a lot more because you could go back and talk about what you saw at school. But I
Hmm.
guarantee you, nobody was talking about Vegeta crying over Trunks. Nobody was really talking about Gohan. Like we weren't talking about the story as kids. But now we can appreciate those things. So I definitely will say after having this talk with you guys, I got a lot more of appreciation for Dragon Ball Z story, and you guys brought up some points that I completely forgot, like that kind of gets swept under the rug to the fighting. Like I know you say they force us the story, but the fighting kind of glazes over the story, and sometimes it causes us to forget that because you get so caught up in like who beat who and what it took to get there, you don't think about the little nuances that happen outside of the fighting because the
Hmm.
fighting is the main thing for Dragon Ball Z. Like,
Yeah,
yes,
for
there's
sure.
so much more, but like if you ask the average person who's watched Dragon Ball Z, they're mainly going to tell you about the fights. They're not going to get into deep thoughts about it. Now, there is a large part of the community that loves Dragon Ball Z. And like you guys are part of it. And so that's why it's such a great conversation with you two. But if you were to talk to the vast majority of people who weren't like they just like Dragon Ball Z, but maybe they like Naruto more, they couldn't tell you jack shit about the story.
Nah,
Sure,
you're
that's true.
no, go ahead, Ginyu. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was like, that's true. Because ultimately, when you look deep into the story itself, for example, the Cell Saga, the nuts and bolts of it ultimately is it's a coming of age story of a child who who didn't want to do certain things but was pushed into a corner and realized that sometimes there are moments where you have to do something even if you don't want to do it, i.e., for example, he never really wanted to fight Cell. He never really wanted to fight. He never wanted to be a Super Saiyan and all of this stuff and all of that stuff. But Goku thrusted him into that fight with Cell. He got in there. He always held his power back because he never really wanted to fight. And then it was only when Android 16's head got crushed, where after he said, "It's okay, it's okay to fight to protect the things that you love. Let it go, release it." It was that moment, where that coming of age. The story is really in there, and I agree with what Silva's saying is that a lot of the fighting takes a more front view
Hmm.
in the whole thing itself, and like you really have to have those microscopic eyes to really figure out what the story is, i.e., it's a coming of age story for Gohan, for him realizing that you can't always be as passive as you would like. There are moments where sometimes being passive is not the right thing, and sometimes you really do have to fight the fight, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But you won't always know that because the fighting happens. Vegeta fights Imperfect Cell. He powers up. Krillin destroys the remote control because he knows that something good's on the cards. And all of these different things. There's so many things in play that deviate your eyes from the actual story that's actually really happening here, even though the main story itself is not always told at the beginning. It's really told at the end, where you
Hmm.
realize what the actual thing is. You From when the Cell Saga starts, from the androids start, from when it all starts from the androids up until the end. At no point when the androids start would you ever realize this is supposed to be a coming of age story for Gohan. You only realize it at the very end when it actually happens. But it takes all these different components to get there, that happen in a very weird, all over the place, different pacing, as Silver's saying, to actually get to that point where you're like, oh, okay, cool, I understand the story. But it took we did we really have to go this way, that way, this way, back and left, right and twist and through all the way to get here? Okay, you know yeah. But I think that's
So
that's all. That's what I'll say.
that's why I think I suggest if y'all want to go back through and rewatch it from the lens of Kai, right? Because it takes all of that out. And like you were saying, we don't realize it's a coming of age story until it's revealed in the story. We don't realize that until the Z fighters realize that, right? That's and that's good storytelling in my perspective. Now it's one of them things where you don't see it if you're not looking for it. You know, like if you're not observing it, you're not going to recognize it. But from I think we should wrap it up from here because I think we could keep on going on and on. It's Dragon Ball. So with our closing, each one of y'all, starting with Silva then Ginyu, what which one do you put over? Which one do you pick out of the two?
Okay, so I'm gonna stick with my guns and say that I still enjoy Dragon Ball more, but I am floating towards your side. Your guys' side. You guys made valid points, and I'm a Bayesian person. I take information, I process it, and then I make my decision. And I will say that you were right. Dragon Ball Z had a deeper story, and maybe I took issue with the way it was told. And different people interpret stories differently. And I liked the way Attack on Titan was told, and some people hated it. And I can understand from your perspective the way that they told the Dragon Ball Z story. It's like you had to really be paying attention for you to really figure things out, and that is good. That is good storytelling because sometimes you don't need to just be told this is blue, this is green. What fun is that? So I'll agree with you and say Dragon Ball Z is probably the better piece of work, his master work. But Dragon Ball, there's something about the humor and the adventure that resonates more with me now that I'm 36, I guess.
Fair enough. Ginyu?
Y- Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's just for me, like as Silva was saying, like I will stick to my guns. Dragon Ball Z is just something that um I think the emotional investment that I have in the series itself, you know, just having followed it for so long, and especially when you're a kid, you're watching all of this stuff. I really understood the story. Yes, it took me a little while to get the story, but once I really did understand the story itself, as well as the fighting itself, it just still remains as my favorite. Could the stories have been told better? Of course, there are so many things in Dragon Ball that could have been done so much better. But like, it's but it it is one of those things. I will have to try and watch it through Kai, just to truly see if I to truly appreciate maybe what they initially were trying to do, but obviously dragged it out with Z, the original Z. But at this moment in time, and probably for the rest of my life, it will always be Dragon Ball Z above all of the all other iterations of Dragon Ball itself.
Yeah, nah. I think I put Z just like you said above any other of the series in the franchise. I do think OG is very very close to it, but as someone that's not even looking at it from a nostalgic view, because at one point in time I was watching it yearly, like 2017, 18, 19, 20. I was watching the whole series yearly type of thing, and then rerunning Z at least with my son. It's
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll have to go with Z. I think Z is the most comprehensive, not comprehensive, but it's the better piece out of the franchise. So with that, we'll leave it there. Uh,
Wait, I got one question. I know we're gonna wrap this up, but like I haven't watched I Am at all. Like, is it worth it?
yes,
Yeah,
Like,
hit it, run
did
it.
you guys?
Daima.
You,
He's asking if
yeah.
Daima's worth it.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah. It was good. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. Yeah. It was
If
great.
you
I think
like
they
OG,
explore.
I think go ahead. My bad. Go ahead.
Oh no, no. I was just saying they explore. They explore a few way more things as they would than they would in Z. There's less. There's less. Just bish bash whoosh boom boom boom. There's a lot more, bit more yapping and a bit more laying down certain things, and then you get to the bing bang bong 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 at the end. But yeah, I think it is
Not
worth it. Yeah.
we're not talking about Rule 34 though, right?
No, 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 no. But I will say this with Daima, if you enjoy OG, you will definitely enjoy Daima.
Okay,
And it kind of the first half of Daima kind of reflects more of OG, and then as it starts going along, it lays down the foundation of the lore and
okay,
everything, and then it starts picking up to tell the story and wrap things up, and that's kind of where it kind of brings in the elements of Z and Super that we enjoy. So it's really good.
Okay.
It's really good. I gave it like an 8.5. Told honestly, I gave it like an 8.5 out of how good of a series it was. Um, but yeah, Silva, where can they find you? And do you have anything going on?
Oh yeah, you can find me Silva no Yome, like you see here on TikTok, Silva Menace on YouTube, and Silver Circle on Instagram. I swear to God, I'm gonna get that fixed so they're all the same. And I'm just working on more reviews, and I want to do some more long form. Like this is fun. To be honest with you, this has been the most fun I've had in a long time. Like talking with people who know what they're talking about and hearing different opinions. Like I hate talking to people who have the same opinions. It's not fun. So.
Yeah.
It's been good, and I'm hoping to do some more long form, and hopefully maybe this could be a weekly thing because you guys are great. I love talking with you guys.
No,
Appreciate
yeah,
it.
we
Appreciate it.
enjoy having you on here, man. Now, Ginyu, where can they find you, and what you got going on?
Yeah, you can find me at the Anime Association. I'm up here or in and around. Or if you're looking for me exclusively, you can find me on Instagram as Ginu_talk and TikTok. I think same handle. Um, yeah, basically, yeah. Oh, we are around. We are around.
And I am your host, Kyle
Amen to
Tim. You
that.
can find me on Instagram, Kyle_Tim. Or if you like watching anime reactions, then it's just Kyle Tim on YouTube. But mostly you can find these great conversations right here on the Anime Association. And we are signing out. Peace.